This discussion will be on Africa. This is Robert Lamb. He's been on before discussing the United States, but today we will be discussing Africa and the ongoing situation there. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Yes. We can probably start with the fact that Macky Sall of Senegal has recently threatened war with Niger if they don't reinstate the rightfully elected president, their puppet, basically.
Mohammed Bazoum.
You said what?
Mohammed Bazoum.
Yeah, Mohamed Bazoum. I couldn't remember exactly how to pronounce his last name. But yeah, Macky Sall has threatened war if they don't reinstate Mohamed Bazoum.
But ECOWAS, I don't think, are in a position to dictate the Niger. I really don't believe that at all. And here's a few reasons why. Niger has uranium and the oil. Mali has gold, uranium, diamonds, copper, iron ore. Burkina Faso, gold, zinc, copper, manganese, and phosphate. Guinea has bauxite, iron ore, gold, and diamonds. And Algeria, who said that a threat to Niger will be seen as a threat to Algeria as Niger neighbours Algeria. Algeria has oil, gas, iron, zinc, lead, and silicon. And Biafra, who stated that if Nigeria supports an ECOWAS intervention in the Niger, they'll cause trouble for Nigeria. Biafra has Africa's largest oil reserve: coal, iron ore, limestone, lead, and zinc. And on the colonial powers turning this war hot, France responded to Niger by releasing terrorists into the country and bombing the country. And in the first half of 2023, what in the killed 1,093 people in 114.
And this, honestly, it comes as no surprise, and it's not the first time the imperialist powers have done this. It even traces back to the Cold War, where the U.S. armed the Taliban to push out the Soviet control.
And that's what policy got on of the special operation court. The rights he said Afghan Mujahid and told Robert Hutt, remind him of a little thing, 9/11. On tourism in this region created a million refugees and a refugee crisis with the ongoing Donbass conflict, and 6 million people in the countries of the Sahel region were internally displaced. And yet the French response was to release terrorists.
Exactly, because they know they're losing control. These military coups are just revolutionary comrades who are seizing their own means of production, taking it back from these imperialist powers. Sorry, I had a mosquito on me. They're bad out here near my mama's house. And by seizing these all these resources, NATO they're probably already sending people in by now if they haven't already, because they know without these resources that imperialist power will dwindle because, as we were stating, a lot of vital resources come from these areas. That, and we see a lot of these African countries now joining the BRICS agreement.
I just want to say two things there. You spoke about globalization, right?
Right.
US are moving aircraft carriers up and down the west coast of Africa. And on the French, they are a major player in the EU, and the EU valued so much their export markets being destabilized after Brexit, but isn't what the French, one of the big players in the EU, what they're doing in West Africa, is that not destabilize their export market? And on another thing, Biden and escalated before the SMO, that led the African countries losing between a third and 100% of their imports. So does that not devalue the export markets? I think it's hypocrisy on the part of the West, and the idea that the UN, the EU, NATO, and the African Union and ECOWAS thinking they can dictate the countries like Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. It's hypocrisy, because it's exactly what they accuse Putin of doing in Ukraine. It's disgusting. One rule for the other me. That's what it seems like. Imperialists.
It
Go ahead.
does. They're trying to stir up that unrest because they know without that unrest, they have literally zero chance of holding on to these critical areas. And it's like that address I had sent you from December of last year, where Biden addressed the African Union, and Macky Sall, Senegal, had as well. You pointed out the hypocrisy right there in Biden's speech at that address.
But it's incredible. That's something that should be noted. In 2012, the States spending on Africom, that's US military presence in Africa, was $277 million. It is now over $2 billion. It's a ninefold increase in a decade. And they're not just out of the generosity of their heart. They're doing it because the bases are proximal to the mines.
Yeah, I agree there. And another thing that's got them worried is the Wagner forces that have been helping out in Africa, because Wagner have been steamrolling them in the Ukraine.
Did you ever see the French state broadcaster's documentary on Central African Republic?
I haven't seen that documentary.
Well, basically, it's about the rebel groups in the border region, and basically the French state broadcaster was bellyaching about of the Wagner group in the border areas of Central African Republic, and they spoke to the farmers of the Central African Republic and questioned him about it. He said, yes, the Central African Republic invited the Wagner group in for that purpose, to defeat the terrorists.
That's
the French,
interesting.
the French broadcasters not know how to reply to that.
Oh, that's interesting. You'll have to send me the link to that. I'll probably watch it later today.
But if
This documentary, if you can find the link.
If anyone in the audience want to watch that, it's on France 24 YouTube channel, I believe.
All right. France 24 YouTube channel. I'm writing that down in my notes.
But of course, it is going to come with the typical imperial bias that one would see it with a French state broadcaster.
Right. I mean, it would just be you gotta look through the lens there because, like you said, it's gonna come through their lens, not necessarily the people's lens.
And on French imperial bias, West Benin, so Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, and Togo have the West Franc imposed on them. Cameroon, the Central African Republic, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, and Congo Brazzaville have the Central African franc put in them, and African francs are scam currencies. So the French state can monopolize their national resources. And do you know how Equatorial Guinea became part of the Central African franc zone?
No, I didn't know that.
But basically, it's a long story. Centuries ago, it was a colony of Portugal, and in a negotiation between the Spanish Empire and the Portuguese Empire, the Spanish swapped Brazil for Equatorial Guinea. So the Portuguese Brazil and the Spanish got Equatorial Guinea. And when the time for decolonizing came, Equatorial Guinea was under the control of General Franco. But the problem was that the president who got elected under the Franco occupation was Francisco Macias, and he was an open follower of Adolf Hitler. And basically, after Equatorial Guinea gained independence, the whole Britain went off a cliff. And then I think it was 1979, around that era, his nephew, Teodoro Obiang, he overthrew him, and he is still the leader today. But the reason Equatorial Guinea became a Central African franc country was due to a Equatorial Guinea oil. Basically, kept up human rights abuses, human rights abuses under Macias behind part-time. Basically, he threw a hissy with Spanish and the basic Soviet the Jacques and seen more imperial influence, basically cheap oil. Yes, one of the worst on that.
Sorry, I keep having to lean near the phone. I'm deaf in one ear, so I'm trying to keep up with what you're saying.
So yeah, basically the long story of how Equatorial Guinea became a French influence, and they're just an imperial outpost in West Africa.
Exactly. It's like we was talking about with Muhammad. That these French imperialist powers, they just had their puppets in Africa as well as the other former imperialist powers. But Africa is starting to fight back against that because Africa knows that they want to advance past the state that some of the nations are in, especially in the more rural areas, that they're going to have to take their resources back for themselves. In the meantime, that also brings us back to the BRICS agreement because a lot of these countries are starting to join BRICS. So the imperialist powers the imperialist powers of unipolarity are very quickly losing ground to the multipolar world under BRICS. And we were discussing the uranium too that comes from this area.
Basically, I believe that it's 1 in 3 light bulbs in France are produced. Well, the electricity produced to light them is from uranium that was mined in Niger. 1 in 3.
That's a lot more than I thought it was. I knew it was a lot. I knew it was a good chunk of it, but I didn't even realize it was like 1/3.
It is indeed, and basically, the French are even more reliant on nuclear energy than the Germans and other neighbouring European countries.
That's interesting. Why is that? Do the other countries burn more fossil fuels or something?
Not only that, basically, the French can use the uranium from Niger not only to produce electricity for their own market, but the neighbouring markets, so that the French energy companies make even larger profits than they otherwise would have.
So the French are basically monopolizing the energy production in neighboring regions.
Well, it was mostly France and Germany, but um, the German industry has detoured over a cliff since Biden sabotaged the Nord Stream pipelines.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because a
And,
lot of that area was dependent on the Nord Stream, and by Biden doing that, he basically caused a lot of people to die because they didn't have heating and all that they should have.
I'm pretty sure he unemployed a lot of people with that wee maneuver. And also, it was the biggest um, emission in history. Yet I didn't hear Greta and the environmentalists um, shouting and screaming about it.
Well,
And
that's because Greta is a tool of the imperialist herself, the
I'm just
WEF.
I'm just pointing out the massive hypocrisy, and also, um, do German workers not deserve to have jobs? Where's
They
the
do.
where's where's the energy for German industry and German small and medium enterprises? Like, is the gas ferry going to come along and hand it out like St. Nicholas?
Of course not.
And
Biden
also,
doesn't care about his own people, much less people internationally.
but why did the why are the Germans so wedded to the US position? Like, it's not like midstream's going to come anytime soon, because if they hadn't noticed, there's ongoing conflict in the Donbass.
Yep.
Also South Stream. Oh yes, because being proximal to Southwest Asia, that's a safe and stable region. It's not like the imperial powers have poked hornets' nests left, right, and center there. Like, they didn't think it through, the energy crisis.
Exactly, because Southwest Asia, like you said, it's a hornet's nest because of the imperial sponsored Wahhabists, and then you have the Zionists who control Israel, or the illegal state of Israel, I should say. It's about as legitimate as Northern Ireland, running over their neighbors.
It's funny you should mention that. Um, the British rationale for creating a Zionist state was, we'll have a loyal little Jewish Ulster in the Middle East in a sea of hostile Arabism. That
Uh,
that is a direct quote.
Wow.
But yeah, and also while we're linking um, imperialism against Ireland, the other regions, do you know that basically this region of South Africa called the Transvaal has more Irish bodies buried in it than the rest of Africa?
No, I didn't know that.
Because so many Irish people went to fight on the side of the Boers in the Second Boer Liberation War against the British.
Right, right. I knew about the Liberation War, but I didn't know a lot of Irish kin went down there to fight with them.
And also on resource extraction, due to the gold found beside Johannesburg, South Africa, for a while became the world's richest country until the British annexed it.
No, I didn't know that they was the richest country at one point.
So basically, and how that parallels with what's happening now in West Africa, basically what the British did around that time to South Africa is what the French, with the backing of the EU, the UN, US, African Union, and ECOWAS, is basically helping the French to do that to West Africa.
Yeah, I see your point there.
And
I hadn't even thought about it from that perspective, but I do see the point there.
this is an interesting point. Uh, the French have 100% access to electricity, and it is 15% in Niger who actually produce uranium, and basically the 15% in Niger suffer more blackouts than the 100% in France.
Oh
Also,
no.
um, the French have no gold mines, yet the warehouses with gold are full of their gold reserves, whereas Mali has hundreds of gold mines, yet has no gold reserves.
Because France is basically plundering it all.
Exactly. It would
Go ahead.
it would be basically like after the gold rush, um, the British coming back and saying, "That'll be ours, thank you very much."
What do you think? I was thinking about this possibility the other day. If NATO and the allied countries try to declare war in West Africa. What do you think the odds are that Eurasian world of Putin, Z, all of them would be to have West Africa's back, especially with the BRICS coming into place? Do you think there would be a potential for a World War III if this were to happen?
I think there would be, and I think ECOWAS and the African Union should reconsider their ultimatums on Niger. Like they're going to be surrounded if they try, because Libya is going to go along with it. Algeria, Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Biafra. There are going to be consequences if they think they're just going to march in and reinstall Mohammed Bazoum.
And then we not only those you listed, but the Arabic countries that have recently joined the BRICS agreement as well, because they've done got tired of Western imperialism. Even Saudi Arabia joined this agreement, and Saudi Arabia has, I see them causing this leading to potential Wahhabist insurrections in Saudi Arabia, because for a long time, other than Israel, that was the West's biggest puppet in Southwest Asia.
I wouldn't be too sure about the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They're not exactly known for keeping their word.
Fair enough. I know Iran would probably keep their word on that, though.
And you can consider the damage that Saudi Arabia has done to its neighbors. Like it's not a state or regime that I would ever welcome with open arms. And if you know the history of the first and the second Saudi Emirates, why would you think the leopard has changed its spots this time? Like,
Fair enough. I haven't studied the Saudi first and second Saudi Emirates, so
like, who are they descended from? Hortus, Antipaters, Nalbatians. Basically, they were against our Christ. Why do you think in the millennia succeeding that they're suddenly going to have a change of heart and welcome people with open arms?
fair point. I see. I didn't know that history about the Emirates. Once, oh, I'm going in for just a second. I'll have a little better signal too. Excuse me. I'm gonna finish this interview back here. Let's see. Find the light. This will work. Oh, there we go.
But yeah, given the history of the Saudis, I wouldn't see them as the most trustworthy partner, much less ally.
I believe Syria would probably be one of the ones that from Southwest Asia that would back up West Africa.
Well, they know what it's like. So they do to be destabilized by Wahhabi terrorists, released by Western imperialists.
And then it
Niger does.
not only that, but this imperialist sponsored, was it 2012 or 13, the Syrian civil war?
It was 2011.
Okay, I knew I was in.
Basically, I think it was Operation Timber Sycamore, and basically the Wahhabists who fired the first shots in Dara, which is in southwest Syria. That's when the basically the conflict started, because the Wahhabists fired on police in Dara from Western supplied weapons, from which were funneled in through Libya, which is why Gaddafi had to be gotten rid of. And as Jimmy Dore and Tucker Carlson discussed before he was fired from that broadcaster, basically that's why there were so many CIA contractors in Benghazi.
That does make a lot of sense. Because I remember that incident too, because that was what everybody was wanting to check Hillary's laptop about.
But this is why Obama, Rice, and Clinton did not want any attention drawn to it. Through all the congressional investigations, they did not want attention drawn to it, because they would know what the purpose was. And that's why Ansar al-Sharia were there and armed to the teeth. And where did Ansar al-Sharia turn up? On the Levant? Oh, Syria.
Oh, that does make a lot of sense though when you put those pieces together.
And I think it was one of the most expensive CIA operations ever, Timber Sycamore, if I'm correct in recalling that. One of the most expensive programs ever.
That's crazy to think about, because you look into some of their other programs in the past, like MK Ultra, Operation Midnight Climax, and others similar to that, especially during their days of trying to perfect mind control. They spent astronomical amounts.
But yeah, that's the kind of program I see the French doing to Niger, because they've already started bombing, and the US, the British, the French bombed both Libya and Syria, and the French have already bombed Niger, and have already released terrorists into the Sahel. And I believe that the French, the Americans, the British, possibly the Germans, for on behalf of the EU, will be supporting the ECOWAS countries and the African Union countries that are foolish and foolhardy enough to go into Niger and try and screw around. But I don't think it will be too long until they find out.
On the African front, what are your thoughts of Julius Malema?
On that, I was going to say there were 76 farm attacks in the Republic of South Africa in the second quarter of 2023. This is when he was doing the Peter Makaba chant and singing Ayasaba Magwala. And the lyrics of Ayasaba Magwala are horrendous. Like, cards are scared, these dogs are raping and shoot the boar. And people have obviously heard that message. Like, there were years there that there wouldn't be 76 attacks in a year. Never mind one quarter. And basically, it's like that documentary, The War of the Flea, you see, by Rian van der Walt. Basically, you see what happens when Julius Malema signs Ayasaba Magwala, and then you see the days after which farmers are attacked and killed for the weeks after.
So it's very possible Malema himself is one of their little plants to destabilize Africa.
I think he has his ethnic biases because, of course, the petty kingdom of Lisboa is next to the Boer Republic of the Transvaal. So
yeah,
he obviously has historical grudges, as I'm sure many on both sides do. But it's another thing to call for the murder of an ethnic group. And I'm sure if a Boer activist was calling for the destruction of the Bapedi, that people would be calling it racist. But what I don't get is the people who have no problem with the Peter Merkaba chant and Ayasamba Magwala are up in arms over triad in a small town. Like, can you not see the hypocrisy there? It's one's literally calling for an ethnic group's blood, and the other's just bravado and basically hometown bass, but nothing offensive really.
right.
But on South Africa, do you know that there's going to be grid failure there?
No, I hadn't heard that.
But basically, they have a nationalised energy provider, but
Right.
their energy provider exports to other neighbouring countries before making sure everyone on the South African grid is looked after. And that basically means South African businesses who need that energy to keep going and surviving will go under. And basically, have you heard of load shedding?
No, I haven't.
Basically, you're given the hours of when blackouts between this time and this time. So basically, they can keep making the money off the exports to the neighbouring country, but everyone in South Africa has to put up with load shedding. And basically, they think, regardless of whether or not it's privatised, and they want to privatise it, but basically, they think even by that time, the blackouts and the exporting of kilowatts elsewhere will lead to the grid collapsing, and that will basically do in food production as well, as farmers need the electricity to basically farm and produce the food, and people and more a quarter of people are already starving, but that will lead to more people starving, and basically Pretoria could end up collapsing, bricks or no bricks. And I think that's the only thing that could save South Africa in that scenario is a BRICS intervention.
Right.
What do you think?
I think you're right. I think with especially this about the power grid in danger of collapsing because of, how did you pronounce it?
Load sharing?
Load sharing?
Or
Load sharing?
Load shedding, I beg your pardon.
Okay, load sharing. I couldn't understand what you said the first time.
No, load
yeah,
shedding.
With the load sharing and the potential danger of a collapse of their entire power grid, which, like you said, this could lead to a mass famine. BRICS intervention is their only hope at this point.
But yeah, I should have said load shedding.
Okay.
I said load sharing by mistake. But yeah, it's it's a terrible situation. And do you know that in South Africa, people live on less than 8,000 rand a month?
I did know that because I have a friend who, not Ivan. This girl, she's a female boarder from South Africa. She's told me about that before.
But yeah, 8,000 rand a month. I don't think that level of poverty is sustainable, considering that country's got some of the richest mines in the world. And also, see, nationalising the mines, I think that would prevent workers' protests that led to the events of Marikana. Are you familiar with that?
No, I haven't heard about anything in Mauritania.
But basically, the miners, the miners' union was doing a protest, and the ANC, on behalf of the mining companies, sent in the South African police service, and they basically went in and shot all the mining strikers.
So like the early days of mining unions here in America when the U.S. government would send in Pinkertons to bust up strikes.
Indeed, but basically it was the state and the government that was the difference. In South Africa, the ANC just basically did the bidding of the corporations for them. And that was the first thing President Cyril Ramaphosa did when he got in. He increased taxes on the poorest people in South Africa.
That's discriminatory, just increasing the taxes on one person group.
But basically, it was a slap in the face. The people in South Africa who were already struggling, and ironically, he used to be a trade union leader back in the day.
Oh, so yeah, that's like a stab in the back.
I think it's once he got into politics and
He
started
forgot where he came from.
basically all his rich friends basically put him to the top after Suma's corruption became too much. But I think that's what the French and the US want to do in West Africa. Follow that model. If the miners want greater ownership and control, just send the police in to shoot them and keep the minerals being extracted.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think the aircraft carriers on the west, moving up and down the west coast of Africa, that suggests that there's going to be an intervention of some sort.
And it's like we were discussing, that intervention could very potentially lead to World War III.
And I think they're going to try and open it up as another front because basically their front in Donbass, the counter-offensive, is only getting a few villages here and there, and even then they don't retain control for long. But since that didn't work out as they had hoped, I think they want to open up another front in West Africa. And then after they've done that, I think they're gonna try and do something over Taiwan, but I don't think they have the means to succeed.
I don't either, because if they do all this, they're literally forcing their own selves into a pincher maneuver from all sides.
But I think they're just going to try and stretch Russian and Chinese forces, and I don't think it's going to work. I think it's going to overstretch their own forces who are in military bases across the world, and they won't be able to mobilize them all at once.
Right. I know for a fact because I was on a Discord chat the other day for one of my gaming groups, and there was a over talkative Canadian in there. He was sharing pictures and all. NATO are heating up training exercises in Lithuania right now as well.
That's another dangerous situation, because the Polish and Lithuania, they are looking back for lost territory they haven't had in a century or so. That
They want their Commonwealth back.
Yeah, basically territory which is now Belarus and West Ukraine, and I don't think they realize what they're doing, because if Russia is moving westward and basically Lithuania and Poland are moving southeast, it's a matter of time before there's going to be a clash. And then, because both are members of the EU and NATO, that means Article 42, Clause 7 of the Lisbon Treaty and Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty are triggered, and that's common defense. And basically, that will be nuclear war. Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty and Article 42, Clause 7 of the Lisbon Treaty, and basically it'll go nuclear.
Oh, so that war will get hot very quick.
And basically, I think both Poland and Lithuania are thinking they can gamble and get away with it. And I don't think they've factored in Belarus and the KGB. I really don't. And I think that they're quickly in for a rude awakening.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Because Belarus is a stalwart ally of Russia, too.
And also, to get to certain parts of Belarus, are they going to go through the Duchy of Prussia, or also known as the Kaliningrad Oblast of the Russian Federation? That could trigger those articles as well, because if they encroach on Kaliningrad, basically Russia could be forced into self-defense, and that could be the pretext for Article 5 and Article 42, Clause 7.
You're right. This war, it kind of makes me worry for our future, especially because I just had a newborn son, but it sounded like this war is heating up to, like we were discussing earlier, World War III very quick. And it's like Albert Einstein said, I know not with what World War IV, I meant World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be sticks and stones.
But not even that. Bringing in the Finnish and the Swedish, if not to cut off the Russian Baltic fleet, then why would they be brought in? And that could prevent them from getting the Kaliningrad. And since the Russians got the warm water ports in Crimea and on the Black Sea shelf, basically I think that's basically a sign, a signal that they can cut off the Baltic fleet and Kaliningrad. So basically that would be a win for Poland and Lithuania, or so they pridefully believe. but I don't think they've thought the implications through.
Now, it's like he said, they're just gambling on it being a success, which it will not be.
And stretching the line of defense from Helsinki to Lugansk, that's a good 1,000 miles right there. And trying to stretch it into the Niger Delta, that's insane. Like, where are they going to get the forces? And plus, Algeria's not playing ball. So basically, you can have your aircraft carriers off the coast, but sooner or later, countries will start defending their own national interests.
Exactly, cause it's like me and you were discussing on the chat the other day, in the messenger, with the whole Senegal Macky Sall threatening to declare war on Niger. That would probably be the thing that pushes Algeria into taking the side, and it wouldn't be theirs.
And I don't think they've even thought this through. Where are they getting the energy for their military vehicles from?
Wouldn't it, Algeria?
Not even that. Biafra sits on the largest oil reserve in Africa, as I said earlier. Like, do you think the Biafrans are just going to say, go ahead, Nigeria, go ahead, ECOWAS, go ahead, African Union, go ahead, United Nations, go ahead, US, go ahead, EU, go ahead, France, have the oil? They're going to tell them where to go, and things could get very messy and out of hand there, like it did in the 60s. And that's going to leave Nigeria fighting a war on two fronts, one in the south against Biafra and one in the north against Niger. And like you said, it's a self-inflicted pincer wound.